No one told me Billy Ellis was going to be part of this show. Bad guys. Yep, I'm starting off early. My name is fastcart, also known as FC. I'm everywhere on in Star Citizen, more so now than usual. Uh, yeah, yeah, that's good enough for now. Recently is debates on Tuesday with Miss Hart's on the 80s show. Sometimes I'm on Dead Air with Super Bathley, that's on Friday. Sometimes I'm on Relay, that's on Saturday. Sometimes I'm on the captain table on Saturday. Also, yeah, I'm kind of a busy guy sometimes. Oh, don't forget, I'm also on Super Bathley's RPG BTM Vampire the Masquerade stream sometime. There you go.
Yo, I forgot to pay my bills. The power went out. No, I did. The government cut me off during COVID. No, the power just went out, and I had a freaking moment because the power went out for a couple of seconds, jumped back on, and everything's back in action. So we're good.
Griffin, they said your audio's off.
Oh my God! All this time I've been talking, guys, and you couldn't hear me. I'm so sorry. Griffin Gaming RPG, welcome, 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 welcome. Today, as you guys saw, we're going to be talking about Criminal Minds.
Okay, now I can hear you on the stream, but I can't hear you in Discord.
Okay, well, they can hear me. Okay, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the audio. In the meantime, we're going to be talking about, before we even get into the subject of crime and the law and the justice system and prisons, there was some big news that went out into the community this week. And of course, we got the news that CitizenCon 2050 it was canceled. And so I know a lot of us were looking forward.
Audio.
A lot of us were looking forward.
He's talking. He's just on stream. I can hear him on stream. That's how I know he's talking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, guys, if you can't hear me. I don't know what's going on with the audio. Here we go. The Gremlins are back. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. Thank you for the follow. But if you guys would give me some feedback on your feelings about CitizenCon being canceled, any thoughts or feelings on that?
I'll go first because I don't think he can hear you yet. But I had a sliver of hope. I was still hoping. I know that the LA Convention Center is used as a triage center at the hospital for patients and stuff like that. But I was thinking that maybe if all this was settled by July or like by the end of July, CitizenCon could still be a thing. But it's better that they told us now than later.
Yeah. Colossal, can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, sorry about that. The question was is that this week we got the news on CitizenCon 2050. Of course, we heard that it was going to be canceled and till next year. Any thoughts or feelings about what's happened with that and in the future right now, even with the development of Star Citizen?
Coming from the field of education, all I can say is about damn time they did that because um, the country is just not ready yet. Some people feel differently. Uh, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, when you're coming from the field of education and you're worried about the little ones, you're not interested in anybody's thoughts about trying to open up the government. You're worried about those kids and things like that, and to have that type of event going on in a city and a state that we already know that's already been hit very, very harshly. I'm kind of glad they kind of pushed it back. And plus, on the flip side of it is, I'm really glad they got rid of it because I want them to concentrate on Squadron 42. It'd be nice if they go ahead and launch Squadron 42 in the fourth quarter of 2020, like I heard them say. It'd be nice if they did that, so this would give them ample time to do that. And so kudos to CIG for making the right decision. Now get to work and make that game the best the best damn space game we know that Chris Roberts wants to make.
Okay.
Real quick, I was thinking that they could do both. They've been doing both for quite a while now, but it's like CitizenCon is my only chance to get together with the people I will only see like once a year, once every other year if I don't go to VerseCon. So I will be missing that. But yes, I prefer people to be safe and healthy, and
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be someplace I can go to next year.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, we don't think about the fact that CitizenCon is not a national event, it's an international event. So you're bringing people from all over the world into this space. And again, even if things have subsided, just for the sake of safety, and the sake of, the world kind of getting itself back on its feet, it is a compromise. But I also really feel that CIG is going to step up, and they alluded to the fact that they are going to kind of compensate a little bit by doing some extra things this year. And so it'll be really interesting to see what some of those things may be. I agree with Kelosal. Now they can focus completely on development. I'm sure they do have to juggle to pull off a convention like that, because each year it has grown. And there was an expectation that this year would have been both the largest and probably one of the most significant citizen cons that they would have had. So the fact that they can kind of keep focused and keep their heads to the grindstone, and not only for Squadron 42, but even just for Star Citizen, I'm pretty excited about that. So, we'll see how it goes. We're going to miss seeing people. I agree with you 100%, fastcart. Kelosal, we've all been to the Citizen Con before, and anybody who's gone will tell you that as great as it is to see the development of the game, we just as equally enjoy being around people, meeting people, seeing people, faces that we've talked to, maybe that we've never got a chance to see in person. And then, of course, seeing people that we have seen back from years ago. So we'll look forward to 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that California is off the hook.
Right.
Chris Roberts brings it right back to California.
Yes, sir.
Every intent to coming there this year.
Yes, sir. Oh,
be ready because Colosal's coming.
And also, this is going to be some people's first year going to CitizenCon, and I feel their disappointment. But I met with Molly from CIG during PAX East at the Bus Citizen for PAX East, and she said if you ever went to CitizenCon, this is going to be the year to go.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that they're disappointed as well, maybe more so than us.
Yeah. Because interestingly enough, the developers look forward to actually meeting and interacting with the backers as well. So there's a two-sided thing to that. It's not just on us, but even them. There's a connection that happens. Anybody who's gone to a CitizenCon will tell you the developers that are there, they spend time with the backers. It's not like a matter of, well, let's, go and put your hour and a half in and go home. They stay just as late as we do. And some of us have even seen Chris stay, to the very end. So it's a great time to get to meet the development team in person. And of course, meet other backers and stuff. So we will look for next year, 2021. And Kelosal, you're 100% right. They better not go to Germany. They better not go to the UK. They better be in Los Angeles in 2021. Better be in Los Angeles.
Let me just say one thing. Julian Anderson, I'll miss you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, let's hope, and not to be funny, but there is another side to this, right? Because we were kind of looking for a possible, and this is all, theory crafting and conjecture and everything. Thank you for the follow, St. Tosin. We were thinking about this as some conjecture, but there was an idea that maybe there'd be an announcement about Squadron 42 as maybe a release date or something like that. But if we go next year, who knows what we're going to hear, or maybe what we'll even see, so. Go ahead, Kelosal.
See, here was my conspiracy. I was thinking of this.
Shiver.
I was thinking of this because we all know if you're a huge gamer and things like that, whether it be console or PC, E3 usually comes out around June.
Right.
And I was hoping.
I know what you're thinking.
I'm getting there. I'm putting this out and putting this bug in people's ears right now.
Yeah.
So pay attention, America. See, I was thinking that when in Austin, not last year, but the year before, in CitizenCon, Chris Roberts came out, and I hope I'm right on this one because if I remember correctly, because I did have some drinks, that he said that Squadron 42 is going to come out in the fourth quarter of 2020.
Right.
Okay, fastcart, you was there. I saw you around. Griff, I saw you. I just didn't come up to you. So I was hoping that, oh my God, okay, all right, so here's the deal. In terms of marketing, wouldn't it be a wonderful idea for CIG to come out during E3 and announce Squadron 42 to be available either for the fourth quarter of 2020 or for quarter one of 2021. And that would go ahead, fastcart.
No, go ahead and finish.
Okay, and that to me would have been ideal because you would have hit the entire world gaming community
to see it. Yeah,
to see it right there. You would have hit everybody that was there looking for anything or any platform, Sony, whatever. Everybody around the world would have been there. They would have heard that CIG finally comes out, and that would have put the nail in the coffin to all these naysayers going around here talking about scam, all this mess, right? So, with that being the case, I was really hoping that this summer, despite prior to the COVID,
right.
that all this stuff was going to go down, and that CIG is going to have a marketing fiasco, a marketing dream by announcing at E3 that they are putting out their product. That would have been a magic moment for CIG and those of us who follow Star Citizen.
For me, I have to push back on that a little bit because I remember Video Games Award in 2015. Chris Robert and Mark Hamill both go on the stage together announcing Squadron 42 for 2016. So I don't want a repeat of that.
Well, I don't want a repeat of that, but I think based upon the progress of what we've seen in the game, let's just say that we do go into beta later this year for Squadron 42. Everything's been canceled this year, right? I mean, everything's put on hold. All gaming conventions, everything, right? So
virtual.
Right. So, but I'm saying in general, those presentations, they're not going to be like they would be, right? So we know that next year they're going to want to come back with a big bang, and to be able to do it next year as a platform, I agree, would be amazing. Assuming to fastcart's point that we are in beta prior to that time. If we're in beta prior to that time, then guarantee you it will knock the socks off when they unveil that. That would be a worldwide platform for people to be able to see the progress of Squadron 42. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
And I agree with that point. It's just that they've done it before on a smaller scale, granted, but they've done it before and got burned by it. So I'm careful. I want to be careful about that.
Yeah. Well, again, we know that was in the early days, if you want to call it the early days. So hopefully
that was only 4 years ago.
Yeah, I know. We're only 4, right? Only 4 years ago, right? Okay, we won't go down that road. Okay. And by the way, Kelosal, it would have been very easy to spot me in fastcart at a convention. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right.
Oh yeah, y'all were hard to spot.
Okay.
I looked around the room. I looked around there.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump.
Wait.
What?
Is that Griffin or is that Forrest Whitaker?
Oh, there we go. So here we go. Yeah, somebody threw that Forrest Whitaker thing on me. I remember that. I can't believe that mess. Anyway, okay, we won't even go on that one. Okay, let's jump into our subject tonight. Again, criminal minds. This whole, as you guys know, with the entrance of 3.9, we have gotten the prison system, which is another step in the law system that CIG has been putting into Star Citizen. There's also been some new justice system laws that have gone into place in relation to crime stat and how you get into prison. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. Klescher is going to be the last thing we talk about. But before we get into that, we want to talk about different aspects of, I guess, what some people would call crime. Some people may consider it not crime. And so before we dip into it, the first one is piracy. I'm going to start with Kelosal. Kelosal, talk to me a little bit about do you feel piracy is important and why in a game like Star Citizen?
Yeah, I do. But can I start off with a definition of piracy?
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, all right. So we got 3 definitions here. So this is coming from the Webster dictionary. It says here that piracy is an act of robbery on the high seas. An act of robbery on the high seas. So we can deduce that we're in space, right? All right. Second definition is a robbery on the high seas. And third definition, there are 2 of them here, an unauthorized use of another's production, invention, or conception, especially an infringement of a copyright and or the illicit access of broadcast signals. In other words, hacking, right?
Right.
So now here's Kelosal's definition of piracy. It is all Wagnabit, okay? AHWAGNBIT, BTD, assholes who ain't got nothing better to do. Okay, so with that being the case, I mean, is it going to be good in game? Yeah, it's going to be good in game. It gives you another sense of immersion with it.
Okay.
You know, you can't just run around here and expect that everybody's going to allow you to go ahead and make 20 million in a night
Right.
or things like that. So you got to have some type of system that allows for the lawlessness to become the law,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
In places like Pyro and things like that. I mean, so I mean, God bless those jokers, but good God Almighty, I mean, if you're gonna run around here with people like that you see the grievers that we'll talk about later on down the line, then there's got to be some type of management for that. But hopefully it'll be a good gameplay. It won't be my style of gameplay.
Okay. Fastcart?
First of all, Colossal, can you put that initial in quick chat for me? Because I didn't cut that already. Second of all, for actual piracy, griefing, everything, all that stuff, just stay the heck away from me. Cause I don't want any part of that. I'm gonna be around terror. My happy butt gonna be, try to be safe. I'm gonna try to hire some guns and stuff like that. So, yeah, just leave me alone. But yeah, for piracy, I guess yes, I can see how people enjoy that. I am not in that camp. I'm what you call a care bear in Ep.9. I know that's a dirty word, but hey, if I'm using it, it's fine. So also, it's not something that I would particularly enjoy. If it's something like I prefer PvE content and going against banjos or whatever else sandbox activity comes up.
Okay.
But
Not your gameplay. Colossal, I'm sorry. I didn't give you permission to put it in there, so sorry. You've been banned. You cannot
Yeah,
write into the game.
God minutes.
I know, but we'll put it in a little bit later for everybody. Well, matter of fact, could you say the acronym again? What was it again?
AHWA, G as in goat, N as in knight, B as in beta, T as in Thomas, D as in David.
There we go. All right. Yes, he's been banned.
Way to get banned, folks.
Okay. It's just fastcart remove timed out on Colossal. So
you should be good, yeah.
Yay.
All right. Well, contrary to other people's belief, you got three brothers here who don't want to do no crime. Okay, so let's just throw that in at the very beginning of this. All right. I'm not big into crime either, but we will talk about the importance of it because Colossal, I think you're right. In order to have balance in the universe, and Chris has always said that he wants the universe to reflect real life. You do have the bad guys, right? You've got the people out there who are where the good people are sleeping, the bad people are scheming. They're up thinking, trying to figure out how to get over, what they're going to do next. So yeah, I think that's great. Thank you for the definition on piracy as well. You all, in case you all don't know it, Colossal's a school teacher, so he had to go to Webster's before he even got started. But he had to give us the definition. But I do think it's important that we do find some way to define it. Now, it may not be Webster's definition, but I think people have used the term piracy sometimes right on point as far as definition goes. Other times, maybe not so. And so we're going to check out a couple of clips. I was fortunate enough to get in contact with BoredGamer, and BoredGamer gave us permission to use a clip from a video that he did as an interview with Captain Kidd, who is over in a pirate organization in Star Citizen. And he asked Captain Kidd, because they're very organized within their group, to him, what was the definition of piracy? So we're going to listen in on that for a little bit. Then we're going to come back and talk about what we hear and see how many of us, including those of you in chat, if you agree with what Captain Kidd says, or do you see it being something different? And please feel free to type in to us what you think in your mind what piracy is. Do you agree with Colossal said, or do you have some other definition of it? So let's take a quick listen.
Can you explain who you are and tell me a little bit about the Brotherhood?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Captain Kidd. I'm a backer. I've been a backer of Star Citizen for almost 4 years now. So I've participated and played all the way back from 2.0 and watched the development. And just like everybody else, I'm really enthused and excited to have this game be something that's really fun, not just for me, but for everybody. So my role in Star Citizen is as a pirate, and I've always loved the underdog position. So that's what I'm up to, and that's what our group called the Piracy Brotherhood of Libertalia is all about.
So, can you explain a little bit more about what you do in game? What's your sort of gameplay loop?
Yeah, I think for us, the way to kind of sum it up is that I like being a good sport while I'm doing bad deeds. And I know that's kind of a contrarian statement, but being a good sport about being a pirate, I think is really important. And what that means to me is when I target a mark and go in and ask them to drop their shields or open their ramp so we can loot them, I do it with what I call a kind of piracy professionalism, which is to not harass them, not gank them or grief them, and not even KOS, but actually give them an opportunity to surrender first before they die. And that to me is what piracy really ought to be in terms of it being a good sportsmanship kind of activity. So that's my gameplay approach, and it's also the approach of the mates who are working with me in the Brotherhood.
Okay, so you're looking at it sort of like you'd still kill non-compliant players, but you wouldn't go out of your way to gank them. You want to have a bit more of a meaty gameplay loop where there's a bit of etiquette and a bit of sportsmanship there.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're not Care Bears. We will definitely take out targets and marks. So that's not an issue, but it's to not fire on a target unless we're being attacked by them or provoked or we're under siege or a war of some kind, but really to give them the benefit of the doubt to power down, because honestly, it's not about morals, it's about profit. Because piracy, you don't want your ship, your targeted ship destroyed with cargo spread out all across the universe. You want it in one place. You want it where you can get it fast. You want to limit the amount of ammo you use and limit your, I guess, your notoriety. A lot of people want notoriety, but I think piracy needs to be flying under the radar so that we're not calling attention to us, which would cost us ammo and energy and time and fielding UEE retribution, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about profit. It's about profit for us.
Griffin, I don't hear you on stream or here.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I was saying that I like the fact that he talked about it's not about morals, it's about profit, and he distinguishes
You're
piracy.
still muted on the stream.
Really? Am I still muted now?
No, I'm
Okay.
back. Okay, you're fine.
Okay, sorry guys. I was saying that that it's about profit for pirates, and I like the fact that he distinguishes that, and focusing in on the fact that yes, they still will kill you. Don't think that we're not Care Bears. He says we will kill you, but if you do this, that, and the other, we may let you live. I remember when I was playing Eve. I was into mining. I shared the story a while back, but I was into mining. I went into an area that was dominated by another organization, another corporation in Eve. And when their guys got there and I was trying to get away, they basically disabled me and basically stopped and said, "You're not supposed to be in this area. And if you pay us X number, I think it was like 5 million or 8, no, it was like 15 million, we'll let you go." Well, the value of my ship plus my ore was way more than that. And so we literally sat there and negotiated back and forth until I finally got him to come to a number that was reasonable to me, even though I had way more money than that. And he was satisfied with, he let me go, and I was able to keep my ship and all of the contents that I had mined, but I had to leave their sector. So that for me was a good aspect of role play, and it fulfilled what I would even define as piracy. What did you guys think about what Captain Kidd said?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Well, he said some things here. He said we want to be good sports while doing bad deeds. Okay, now that, folks, is called an oxymoron. That's like going around calling somebody pretty ugly. Boy, you are pretty ugly. Boy, you can't be pretty if you're ugly. Okay, so doing being a good sport while doing bad deeds. I mean, and then he says, you want to surrender first before you die.
Hmm.
Well, that to
I
me,
think-
you're gonna die anyways, whether you surrender or not. So,
Real quick, I think it would have been better if he just said, we aim to misbehave. But
yeah,
continue
you know,
on.
Yeah.
and then he comes in and says it's all about profit. Now, I, that's I guess you can take that with a grain of salt, but that's what you're getting, folks, when you deal with pirates.
Yeah.
Okay, you better take Colosal's philosophy, which is shoot first and beg for forgiveness later if you want to get out of that whole situation. And then Shiver came in and asked a question on what about anti-piracy? That would be called being a buccaneer.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they built the ship, the Buccaneer, which you can talk about later. But the Buccaneer is supposed to be an anti-pirate or a pirate killer or something like that,
Mhm.
and things like that. So that's just a side note for you guys who want to know the flip side of piracy.
And I will say this to your point.
Okay.
I will say
yeah,
this to you. Oh, hang on, real quick. I will say this to your point, Colossal. He does clarify a little bit later that they won't kill you. I know the way he said it. It definitely sounded like that's what he was saying. But he does
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
I'm just
treat it
playing
as
with it.
negotiation. No. But to your point, though, that is still another side because there are some pirates who will challenge you, give you the threat, and then say, "And we'll decide if we will let you live." So there's still no guarantee, even after you turn over whatever it is they ask for, that they still may not blow you out of the water, depending on, how they operate. Basically, go ahead, fastcart.
See, I never dealt with pirates on that scale. I used to play EVE Online also. They would people would just blow me up for no reason. I'd be minding my own business, trying to make some money, and I know that's not piracy. That's, well, they'll steal my loot and stuff like that, and steal whatever equipment or gear that didn't explode with my ship. But I used to mine the Hulk, and people who don't play the
Yeah.
Hulk is one of the best mining ships in EVE Online, and it has basically no offense and no defense. If you mine by yourself, you're on your own. So I would be mining by myself because I didn't have anyone to help, and I run multiple accounts, so I would have a couple of miners on a couple of accounts and a couple of haulers on another account, and go back and forth whenever we get full. But occasionally I will be in safe sec. I'll be in secure space, but occasionally someone with a cheap destroyer will come in wanting to have their fun and blow me up. I know that's not piracy by the definition of what they're saying, but that's been my experience, and I'm hoping I don't experience that in Star Citizen, but I probably will. I have to find some way to combat against that somehow.
I know I had similar frustrations when I played Eve, doing kind of similar thing you were doing, even when I did it with Protection and Org. I think that what was broken in Eve was that there was no way for me to respond to that act of violence against me. The bounty system didn't work in it. So basically the loss was always on the end of the miner. We had no, anything that we could do, like putting a bounty on that person to kind of at least say, well, this person did this to me. Somebody go get them. That was the frustration. And I'm kind of glad to see that in Star Citizen, they are kind of trying to put things in that will allow that if someone does a criminal act, that the universe or those in that system can see that there are criminals and that the people can take bounties out on them, which was coming later, of course, when we can start posting bounties on other players. Were you going to say fast card?
And I must came in later because they had a timer thing. Like if someone attacks you, you got a certain amount of time before you can attack them back. So if they blew me up or powered me or something like that, I can respawn, get into a fighter ship and try to go after them.
Yep,
but
they still had that.
More often that they would the timer would run out, or I missed my chance because they would escape.
Yeah.
Or a Concord would get them if they're in high tech.
Yeah. Shiver mentions a point here. He says a pirate that kills you after you pay a ransom gets a bad reputation. And in the end, the word of mouth will get out and they won't get any money in the end at all. And Captain Kidd even alludes to that in part of the interview. I really want to recommend to you guys to check out BoredGamer's video because they do go into great detail about piracy and griefing, marauding. There's a whole bunch of subjects they cover. We just took a couple excerpts. I'm going to play the second part of this so that we can hear what else Captain Kidd has to say about piracy.
And is this style of gameplay, the Pirates Code, and the sort of like the etiquette behind it, is that something that you see as a short-term sort of like thing until we've got more systems for reputation and more implementation of piracy and outlaw systems, or is it something that you also want CIG to potentially take on board when they're developing some of these mechanics, or is it a more of a long-term thing? What's the sort of scale with this?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there have been some confusion about that in the last year, particularly in the Discord community. And we're not trying to push a way that we want it to go. It's more about kind of noticing the way CIG is already going. When Tony Z laid out the crime stat system and the mechanics in this last go around where we had at the convention, it was very interesting to listen to him share about how the rewards and punishment system is going to go. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be mechanics in place that deal with a lot of trying to balance out the gameplay. So I'm not trying to be the great balancer or tell anybody how to play or gatekeep, like I said. But I do think that there are some basic things that if we keep them in mind, we can fly under the radar, we can reduce the retribution. Also, having access to ports of call, to suppliers, and to other player organizations, that if we wind up ass-hatting everybody and having such a terrible reputation that nobody wants to engage with us, it's going to be really hard to be able to get around. Now, some pirates identify themselves through that. The harder it is, the better for them. The more power to them, and they can play however they want. But like I said, it's really about how to play in a way that we can maximize our profit, we can have fun, and we can also send a message to the Star Citizen community that piracy is actually a credible part of the game and not a detriment. And that means abiding by a couple of guidelines that will help us be able to maybe not pull the trigger in a couple instances where by doing so, we turn our reputation, our bad reputation around.
Okay, so on that point, Fastcart, I'm gonna jump to you first. You referenced yourself as a Care Bear earlier, and you did it with pride. You you didn't back down about it.
Yeah.
I've always been a person that's believed that there's a yin and yang to this whole thing, right? That you have the bad and the good, and sometimes I've heard on both sides where folks who are more into maybe exploration, science, and things of that nature, where they are very hard on folks who want to do piracy or do something along those lines, criminal acts. And then those who are on the other side, and we can even go to PvPers, right? So there are people who are into exploration stuff who really get negative about PvPers. But then you've got the PvPers and the pirates who are negative toward the Care Bears. It's like almost like a slur, that you're a Care Bear, right? But I've always felt that you need all of that in the universe to make the universe complete. I think that my frustration, I hate to keep referencing Eve on a Star Citizen thing, but because so many players understand how Eve worked, the economics and how the whole game worked, the thing that bothered me, and Tony Z has alluded to the fact that this will happen in Star Citizen, but it did not happen in Eve. If you started messing with the miners, right, the people who are providing the raw resources to build your great ships and your big fleet, the thing that bothered me was that the economy wasn't impacted enough. You didn't start seeing the price of ships go up or the price of resources and metals go up. They stayed the same. So there was no repercussion to those acts taking place in the universe. When we were at CitCon last year, you guys will remember, Tony Z introduced a very much more detailed aspect of economics and showed us how impact of piracy, impact of workers, all types of things will impact the price of commodities, whether commodities are available, whether commodities become scarce. To me, that's what's going to balance it for me and make it a game that's going to make it much more challenging for everybody, in part because if pirates get too heavy in an area, they start cutting off trade lanes. Guess what? They start going broke, right? At the same time, when everything's flourishing, it also gives them an avenue to make money and profit. So, Fastcart, give me some feedback on that, what you think in that comparison.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like really tough to balance because I mean, like you said, Evil Line didn't have it balanced well enough. If you blow someone up, there's really minimal, if no impact whatsoever on the market, unless you're in like low or no sec. But even that, they have logistics in place to bring in materials from high sec
Mhm.
into no sec.
Right.
But for Star Citizen, I mean, I'm hoping it'll be better, but I have to cop out and say you have to wait and see what happens, see
Hmm.
how it pans out. Because I mean, Eve Online for a while, or I don't know if they still do, but they had an economist on their staff to work out these things. And as far as I know, um, there's no one in Star Citizen with that capacity, but that can change in the future. But I mean, like also, it's going to be a 1 in 10 or 1 in 9 PC to NPC ratio. So if you're like 1 out of 10, how much impact can you actually have? So it'll be a balancing act, and I'm interested in see how they do it. But I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that they'll figure it out.
Okay. Colossal, what about you?
What game has anybody seen that has figured this out? I mean, so, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm with fastcart here. I, I, I I mean, I'm interested in board games. I'm interested to see what Captain Kidd's answer to BoredGamer was when BoredGamer called out his what is a pirate's code?
Yeah.
Because give take things and give none back and all this mess.
Hmm.
And I just love the way how Captain Kidd is trying to recharacterize
Hmm.
the sense of piracy. Um, but it's going to be interesting to see how everybody perceives it in game. You're going to have some people that's going to be happy, and you're going to have a lot of people or some people that may be upset with how that's carried out
Yeah.
in game. But we'll see how that immersion happens, and I look forward to seeing CIG's evolution towards it.
There's a great video that just came out yesterday or today by the Eradicator, where he who does not like piracy decided to try piracy out. He landed at a base. He was in his connie, I think. Somebody landed a caterpillar. He waited for the person in the caterpillar to go in and put in their order. He got on the guy's caterpillar and went inside and got up in the turret so he wouldn't be spotted. When he came downstairs, he ended up finding out that this guy had loaded his caterpillar with 1.3 million in agricium. The whole ship was agricium. And so he was like, oh, this is unbelievable. So he goes up front, pops the guy, gets his name, takes his ship, goes and flies somewhere. And then he contacts the guy and says, hey, I've got your ship. How much will you pay me to get it back? Now, it's interesting that he did that because, first of all, we know he couldn't sell it, right? There's nothing that he could do with it. But what he did do is use it as a point of ransom. He said that he expected the guy to say, I'll give you 20 or 30,000 UEC. He said the guy offered him 500,000 UEC to get the caterpillar back. And so he flew all the way back, brought the caterpillar back to the guy. They exchanged it, had a laugh about it. But he told him later on, could I use this for the video? And the guy was like, sure. But that was an interesting, for his first time deciding to do piracy, that he would run across 1.3 million in agricium. Kind of blows my mind. So look for the Eradicator's video if you want to get the details on that story, because it just came out either today or yesterday. But piracy, my point is that piracy can be a lot of different things depending on how people want to play it out. It can be about surrendering your ship, surrendering what you're carrying, taking your ship and saying, hey, if you want your ship back, this is what you got to pay, or if you want your cargo back. There's a lot of ways people can play it. But I do appreciate Captain Kidd trying to create some type of structure. Now, I know this isn't going to reign throughout the universe, but the fact that they are at least thinking it out and trying to have some guidelines so that their people just aren't doing any old thing and then calling it piracy is the thing that I do like that he's trying to do.
If I can make one more extra point,
sure.
I do think is one point that needs to be pushed in terms of what I think Captain Kidd is also trying to say that I feel like is very important in terms of piracy.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Kidd said it's all about profit.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about profit. So if they're scanning your ship and they see that you got nothing but corundum,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to consider that profitable enough to attack you. You know, so I mean, so be aware of what you have on your ship. Be aware of what type of ship
That's
you
true.
have, because these people are saying it's all about profit, and I don't think a piracy org or organization is going to jeopardize their entire way of life for a non-profit or lack of profit, a non-lucrative adventure. So
That's a good point. Yeah, because that you make yourself, depending on there may be some runs that you could do that you're willing to chance, going out there on your own and going to do. And then there are those other runs, like you say, where it's like, nah, I got to get an escort fleet. There's no way I'm taking this out by myself. Let me ask you guys this real quick, and then we'll jump into the. Oh yeah, go ahead, fastcart.
Before you do that, real quick, I just want to say, my thing is also going back to Ep.9 is the difference between consensual PvP and non-consensual PvP. There's some people who believe that if you're in a certain place doing a certain activity, you're automatically consenting to PvP. Where I don't prescribe to that line of thought. I'm like, if I'm in a certain ship, like a combat ship, then yeah, probably you can take me on. But if I'm just minding my own business, mining with no offense and no defense, I'm not trying to invite PvP. And so I'm wondering how they'll address that in Star Citizen.
That's a good point. Very, very good point. Again, there's so many different ways that people can, and I'm sure we're going to have a million different definitions of piracy. Some people are going to consider ramming my ship into you and, knocking your cargo out in space as piracy. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. What people are going to come up with.
Especially the whole ship.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next question I was going to ask you guys. There's been a lot of concern about ships like the whole series. To me, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, the only way to steal a hull ship is to steal a hull ship. I mean, you literally have to take the ship. And some of you guys may remember there was a video that CIG put out on the Hull C where they showed at some point the ship went into red alert. The lights inside of it were flashing, and the crew had armed themselves and was preparing for a boarding party. To me, that's the type of thing that I see happening with those ships. Because a lot of people say, oh, all the cargo is exposed and outside. First of all, you can't take those cargo containers. They have to be attached to the ship. So I'm thinking if you're going to take one, it's going to have to be that level of piracy and even if you disable it, right? What happens if you disable it? I mean, we haven't seen this game mechanic yet, but to what level can you target engines, disable them, get on board that ship, and can engineers repair them in space? Or, how will pirates get that ship moved with that cargo? Any thoughts on that, guys?
You can hit someone with an EMP and just disable the ship that way, and then try to board the ship when the power is down. So
okay,
that'll be interesting. But yeah, like for the hull specifically, I don't know. It's like I can imagine people will try to ram a hull, try to knock some of their boxes off, and try to claim them with another ship. Unless that ship can survive the ramming and stuff like that, they'll try to claim it themselves. So I can see that coming, but as far as boarding parties and stuff like that goes, yeah, like you can EMP a ship, try to board it, and try to take over it. And people on board the ship can decide whether or not they like their chances and try to hold off the attackers, or you can just surrender and try to some kind of terror. But go ahead.
And I was going to say, J2 mentions here that maybe they bring an SRV, and that might be the only way to get cargo containers, J2. But the question is still getting them moved, and moved to where. I mean, we haven't seen how that whole mechanic on those containers are going to be, whether they can literally be disconnected and put into another ship fairly quickly, like using an SRV. And like Kelosal said, you better bring a lot of them. If it's a whole C or D up, forget it. One SRV isn't going to do it. But that's a good point. That's a good point to raise.
I mean, but the main part, if you're in a whole C or a whole D or heaven forbid a whole E, use an escort.
Absolutely.
Even if you think you're in a safe space, if you're driving on a whole E, that is a big target on your back. So yeah.
Kelosal, were you gonna say something about it?
Well, my concern would be, in addition to all that, what are they going to put in any mechanics for the damage of containers? Because because now remember we got, is it Quantanium? And correct me if I'm wrong, is that Quantanium?
Yeah.
that he just put in game.
Yeah.
So what if you got some? I mean, I understand that quantanium has to be refined and all this mess and blah blah blah. But let's say you are hauling quantanium or some type of volatile cargo that you may have, and all of a sudden that ship is attacking. You're getting attacked, and a couple of your cargoes get hit. Will that devalue the price of the cargo?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what the cargo is. Like if it's something like that's not volatile or something that you can't damage, it should be fine. If it's something like food stuff that may spoil if it's exposed to space or whatever, then yeah, it won't be fine.
Right. I was thinking of what was that? Death Stranding. You know how when if you ever played Death Stranding, you go out there and if your cargo is damaged, your cargo is basically you just lost something.
You lost it, yeah.
You know, some things like that. So it's gonna be interesting if they put any type of mechanics on the value of the cargo if it's damaged or not.
Just as a side note for Death Stranding, that baby just freaks me out. So no, I haven't played Death Stranding.
It's a good game.
Yeah, J2, that's a good point. You could use the SRV to pull a whole ship, again, just depending on the size of the ship. Or even if it's the containers, maybe, I don't know. You know,
or maybe you can use a fleet of SRV to tow your whole E. Maybe.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But there's a lot involved with that because you're talking about quantum jumping and a whole lot of other stuff. I mean, we do that now, but again, it's great stuff to suggest and ideas to think about because I don't even want to think about what it would mean to take a hull E on. I think a hull C, the hull C supposedly will be the most popular of the whole series that will be in the universe. But once you start getting to a D and an E, first of all, the amount of what you're carrying to even put on an E, I still can't, unless you're trying to feed a moon or something. I don't know, for 6 months. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I can imagine an E being used for interplanetary, like going from a planet to a moon and back and forth between planet to planet, but definitely between a planet and moon. You can use an E to hold a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I can see what J2 is saying, but the question is, J2, would that be worth it though? I mean, if you're trying to remember, it's all about profit. If at one point you're seeing a full cargo ship full of laranite, and you just went up there and pew and you blew up the entire hull ship, and now instead of having 50 containers that were solid, you got 2, 3, 5, 10, 50, and that's a lot of lucrative resources gone.
Well, not just that, you've also lost a good ship. Do you really want to blow up a ship? Not to be funny, a hull E, do you really want to blow up a hull E? I mean, the hull E might be worth more than the freaking cargo was, when it's all said and done. So,
well, the thing is, it's not yours. You don't care.
No, but I'm saying, to capture one, what I'm saying? Oh, that'd be awesome, to be able to capture one. Yeah, so I mean, again, this is all theory crafting, but again, we can kind of see how this whole piracy thing can interact if people do look at it from, like you said, a profit standpoint, Kelosal, where it's about how much money can we walk away from when we do this act. Now, true enough, we may lose some money if things escalate to a certain point. Matter of fact, it might get to a point where we make no money if things escalate, because you may have a pilot that basically says, I don't care what y'all say, we all going down. That might be the attitude of the person against the pirate,
I mean, I can imagine someone trying to target like a privateer, a cracking privateer, just to claim all the stuff that's inside the privateer that they're trying to sell, and claiming it for themselves. Yeah, that's going to be,
J2, you're going to piss off some misc lovers in here with that last comment. I'm not going to repeat it, but you're going to get some folks worked up with that one. All right, so let's change channels here and go to our next subject. A couple months ago in March, CIG posted a post on Spectrum, and the post was in relation to griefing and stream sniping. For those of you, if you want to remember the time frame, this was right after the Carrick came out, and so evidently there were some issues with, and the letter kind of focused more on the stream sniping more than griefing, but they mentioned griefing and ganking in the letter. But it was evidently referenced that there were people who were, for those of you who don't know what stream sniping is, it means when you're watching Twitch and you're watching another player play, and then you decide to interact with them, and you know exactly where they are and what they're doing because you're watching them on live stream. But it also works as a disadvantage to the person on the other end because they don't know you're doing that. And so evidently there was stream sniping, and then there was pad ramming. that was taking place. And I remember this because a lot of people were spawning at Port O. At that time, they were spawning Carracks there, and people were constantly I don't know what it was about the Carrack that people decided to go. We hadn't had pad ramming in a long time, and all of a sudden the Carrack came out, and people just started pad ramming again. And go ahead.
My guess is that it's an expensive ship that they just want to like have fun with.
Yeah, I get it, but what I'm saying is there's other expensive ships that have come out, and I don't remember anybody pad ramming 890s. You know, I'm just saying. I mean, it was like some type of weird fever that happened for a couple of weeks of people just constantly pad ramming Carracks. But even the stream sniping also seemed to be happening at the same time, and so CIG basically said, "Hey, you know, there's a certain level and a certain, you know, we stay out of stuff, but there's a certain point where it starts to impact the game of other players, and we don't think this is a healthy aspect to it." This also raised the ire of a lot of folks in the community. Some people felt that CIG was overstepping their bounds, that they needed to just stay out of it, because in EVE, CCP usually stays out. I can't even remember a time where CCP really intervened on anything. They have a real no hands to, once they put it out there, it's just out there. So I don't know if maybe that was because that's how people have responded from being in CCP's game of EVE, or whether or not CIG was going a little bit too far. Or do you think CIG did the right thing? Because we knew the law system was coming, but it wasn't completely put in place by the time to deal with the aspect of pad ramming. Kelosal, give me some feedback. What do you think in relation to that whole thing?
You sure you want Kelosal's feedback? Because a lot of people are going to be upset with me. Because
that's okay. I'll give him your phone number and address when the show's over with. Don't worry. Go ahead.
It is 1-800. Don't call me unless. So
okay, hold on. Let me type that out. 1-800.
Don't call me unless I send for you.
Okay, got it.
So listen, listen, folks. I mean, now you got the prison systems in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, griefing, all that good stuff, and then all of a sudden you got stream sniping. I cannot stand stream snipers. As a matter of fact, we were on earlier in the week or over the weekend. We were all in the game with Captain Richard, and obviously there were some people stream sniping. I'm not going to call no names.
Mm-hmm.
First initial H. The second name starts with a P. And it's named after a little kid in a movie. Okay, if y'all know who I'm talking about, that person is Class A Dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And a big stream sniper and all this mess. But that person did that, or at least that group did it to Captain Richard and group. And they had video of it. Okay, and there were several people who had video of those types of people in there. And obviously, you know, CIG may have some policies. It could be banned because you're talking about in the PTU. So what could you do in the real game? Well, you could initiate that in the prison sentence. You could give them a 48-hour prison sentence, first offense. Okay, or you could give them if you want to do that first offense. Remember, they said they were going to go ahead and put in some type of stuff in your journal where people get to see what you did as far as what crimes you committed in game to determine if you are a good person doing bad deeds.
Affect your reputation. Yeah.
Okay. You know, so that it could do that. So you could go ahead and do that for logistical reasons, for people to go ahead and keep documentation of it, or at least document on in game. And if it's a second time offense, maybe it could go to a 10-day ban in game. Okay, a 10-day ban, you're out for 10 days because, you know, that's stream sniping. You're watching somebody else's stream to figure out where they are, and then you can go ahead and grief them. So I mean, like I said, that's Kelosal's utopia. You know, so I mean, you can take that, or you can just go ahead and just, you know, try to implement smaller versions and try to make it somewhat not of a Care Bear game, but you got to be able to address that some way somehow.
Okay, fastcart.
So my number is 1-800 fastcart. I'm just gonna agree with what Kelosal said just there. Like I don't see what how someone would enjoy screen typing. If it's some kind of like, if it's consensual PvP, or like, you know, Captain Richard or some other streamer is like out in a ship and he's trying to see liquor for trouble, fine. But if it's like trying to get off a pad or some other stuff, I don't see the purpose in it. But As far as the law system goes, yes, I agree with Colossal said on that. Give them a suspension, however many hours they feel is appropriate, and if they keep repeating it, keep giving them they keep giving them more. The problem I see with that is that people can make it's so easy to make a new account. You just need to put in $5, and you can probably give you enough ish to I'm sorry, that's Eve's currency UEC to buy a ship and continue doing what you're doing. Like it's really easy to like have multiple accounts that way and just make someone like miserable.
Mhm.
So at that point, if you continue to escalate it, you may have to take more drastic measures.
Yeah.
But as far as I don't think that there'll always be people who get off doing that. I don't know why. That's something I would do. I don't think anyone here would enjoy doing that. But some people just enjoy doing that stuff, and just have to make it harder to for them to accomplish what they're doing somehow.
Let me ask you a question to point you just made, because one of the responses I hear people say, I've heard this several times, is that people are just bored, that there's nothing to do. Do you think that that's the case in all cases, in some cases, or do you think it's the fact that even if there was a universe of stuff to do, people would still be doing things like pad ramming and stuff?
The last one. There's just gonna be people that like in Batman. Joker says, not Joker, but someone says there's just some people who want to see the world burn.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have people players like that in Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They just want to see shit burn, people burn, whatever burn.
Okay. And this is one of the issues I have in relation to MMORPG. That a lot of times we're MMO and we're not RPG, and I don't know if I never have been able to come up with a good answer for that, and maybe those of you in chat can toss in your ideas about this. There's a feeling for some people that an MMORPG means you can do whatever you want. Like a lot of times we sell a game based on that statement, right? You can come into this world and be anything you want or do anything you want. But then in reality in life, you can't do everything you want. You know, there are restrictions, limitations. Are people in a role-playing game, do you feel that people should be compelled to lean toward role-playing in some form? Or do you feel that, you know what I mean?
Real quick, I just want to say, like, there are some people who like feel a sense of entitlement because they paid money, they bought the game, they feel like they own the game, so it's theirs to do
what they want. Okay.
And some people like to play an MMORPG as a single player RPG, and they can do whatever they want with no consequences, and they extend that into MMORPG. So yeah, I give it to Colossal. I talked enough.
Ban him.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
No, I mean, there's one thing about bad behavior, and again, there's an aspect of being the bad person, the bad guy, the villain, that we need to offset the other side. And I'm nothing against that. I'm not trying to create this utopian world. I do like a world with some form of balance. And sometimes that balance swings more in one direction, and then sometimes it swings back the other way. As long as that's what's happening, it's fine. But when it leans in one direction all the time, that's when it does bother players who necessarily don't want to be on that other side. You want to feel some form of equity when you're playing a game. And so my other question was, I'll ask this question and then we'll move on. And I'm sorry, in fact, I didn't read the letter, but this is the letter for those of you who are on, and you can read it. I don't know if you can read that writing, but it's basically the letter where they talk about this PvP, excessive griefing. It was called excessive griefing, and stream sniping was the type of the thing. And Tyler Whitkin was the one who sent this out. There was a lot of heat after this. I read the comments behind this. Now, there were more people there were 3 times as many people giving a positive thumbs up to this than there were people who gave a negative. But the people who were the negative was the ones who voiced the most in that. Thanos was right. So, I'm curious. Do you think CIG went too far? Should they have just left it alone and said, we got the prison thing coming up, we'll just deal with it when that comes up? Or do you think it was needed to make a statement right when that was taking place? Either you guys can answer that.
You want to go first?
Go ahead, because I'm interested in this letter.
Yeah, I think it was needed. From what I understand, people, if you're blocking someone's access to play the game, not just how they want to play the game, but just like making their life miserable, that's going too far. If it's like one time, let you go, I think that's fine. Even if you like blow up my ship one time, that's fine. But if you keep on doing it time after time after time, that's blocking my access to the game. And people can argue, but you're denying the way I want to play. It's give and take. I mean, you can't have. I mean, you have to give other people a chance to play how they want to play too. It's not just about. It's a shared universe.
Now there is another streamer. I won't say the name, but those of you who've seen this streamer, he has a very elaborate setup in his house. He's got about 7 monitors, and he has cameras showing what he's doing with his hands and his feet and everything. And sometimes he does little dances, but he is notorious for sitting outside of Port O and just nailing people, right? Especially people who are new to the game. And the response that I've seen some people say to that is, well, you're entering once you leave. What's the area called? The Armistice area. It's open game. It's open season, right? But at the same time, we know that at least not now. Things have changed a little bit. But when people started in Star Citizen, Port O was the place where the visiting player started, the new player, the person who's just been playing for a week. For most of them, that's where they start, is at Port Olisar. You didn't see that type of pad ramming and those type of distant attacks happening outside of Hurston or outside of ArcCorp. But you did see them happening in Port O, right?
Because Port Olisar had the easiest targets, and that's where the new players come in, just
Right.
like you said.
So,
And like it got to the point where I would lift off my pad when I'm getting to my ship just slightly, and try to set my jump point within the armistice zone, so I don't drift off too far, and I become a target. But most of the times that works, but evidently for some other people that doesn't work. That's not enough. Or maybe they can. A solution could be extended the armistice zone for like, I don't know, however many kilometers or miles it takes for a weapon to not be effective.
well, see, I think that players who have been in the game for a while know to do what you did. But when you're a new person and you're just now taking off the first time and you put your ship into a slow cruise, you don't realize that you've reached outside of that armistice zone,
Right.
and you get nailed, right?
Well, all it takes is one time, and
Yeah.
I learned my lesson for the first time.
Were you gonna say Kelosal?
There's a couple things you can do. They had this in Star Wars Galaxies before they nerfed it.
And don't talk about it. Go ahead.
In the Geo, you could allow players to make bounties. Okay, and I'm quite sure you're going to have players go ahead and throw up excessive bounties for a particular player. You could raise the insurance claims for that person whenever his ship is destroyed. If he's going to go ahead and pad ran like that or what have you. So, there's so many ways you can do it. The ultimate way is just to ban them, but you can go ahead and just, pull those things. I think player bounties in game where the player gets to actually make a bounty on somebody for that type of stuff would be a game changer as well, because I've seen games where players create bounties for other players and other people will take them. And, so, it's going to be interesting. You could bring back in the idea where you get permadeath.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah.
That would scare a lot of people at doing something stupid like that.
Right.
And you're always going to have the loud minority screaming at you for that, because they're going to want to pad ram you so they can just be alive in 2 minutes and just do it again in 30. So,
well, see, I've always thought that. Go ahead.
I would be more for permadeathing than banning, because I can just imagine someone paying $1,000 or more in concierge and getting all this perk, and then they may not know the rules or haven't heard and they do it one time and then gone, banned. I don't want something like that to happen to anyone.
Yeah.
So like yeah, permadeathing seemed like a more reasonable solution. But
Yeah.
then again, that won't be enough of a the deterrent to someone who's really motivated to make someone life like difficult.
Yeah.
Right, and when we're talking about a ban, I'm not talking about a one-time thing. I'm talking about something that's excessive, right? So,
Right.
so if somebody's doing it multiple times and that's all they're doing, then you could go to that extreme and say, look, you're really not caring. We see several logs. You got several criminal records of you just pad ramming, throughout this time period. So we're just going to go ahead and we're giving you several warnings and you still haven't heeded to those. So we're just going to have to go ahead and tell you bye-bye, play another game. Like I said, that's just excessive. It's not for first timers.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a lawsuit? I spent $25,000 on the game that got banned.
That'll be fucking in water ran.
Well, I will say this. I agree with the permadeath idea because permadeath gives repercussions to your actions, right? And so you really, but then again, there's some people who could care less and wouldn't mind walking around looking like the Terminator when it's all said and done, right? Just getting parts to their body. They really wouldn't care. but the idea of what would happen with you over time with permadeath would make people, I think twice about risk versus reward, right? It's not going to be you're just going to indiscriminately do things because it does impact you if you do that.
Well, that's assuming that's assuming someone will be attached to their character. A lot of people won't be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on. We're going to get past this subject and hit our next one. We're going to go back to BoredGamer and Captain Kidd. And this is when, and you were asking about this earlier, Kelosal, this is what Captain Kidd's going to give his definition, again, emphasizing his definition of griefing.
So this is actually a good segue. How do you define griefers, pirates, and outlaws?
Oh, yeah. So for me, a griefer is someone who derives pleasure from harassing players repeatedly. So for no other reason than to inflict pain or to get off on watching people suffer, or it could be a repeated target where you go in after the same person over and over again and destroy them just for the hell of it. That to me is what a griefer is. There's kind of a fine line between playing in, like I said, in a game loop where maybe you're chasing somebody down or you've got a bounty or something, but really I think it comes down to the harassment, not just in game, but also in some of the supplemental communication channels like Discord and other servers, doxing and harassing and threatening people. That's not fun. It's not fun for me. And it's even not fun for a lot of the pirates that I work with. I mean, just what happened at Jumptown with some of the griefing where people have just had their ships destroyed trying to get ahead with some credits. Now, some people consider that to be fun, but when it's repeated shooting and harassing people, that's griefing.
Okay. Any thoughts on that one?
I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, I do like his definition of. I agree with Captain Kidd's definition of griefing. It's just basically harassment and annoying, and some people may think it's playful, but you're causing suffering in the game, and suffering could be in credits, it could be in UEC, it could be in time. So time that you put in the game. So if you are sitting there harassing somebody and not playing the game as is, and you're annoying them and you're causing distress, bereavement, and all this mess of people crying about their spending $200,000 on carrying this cargo, and this person not only just shot them one moment but did it again and then did it again. I'm sorry guys, that's harassment. So yeah, that's the sheer definition of grief. So I'm in complete agreement with Captain Kidd.
Well, it's only grieving when it's happening to me. When it's happening to you, it's not
Well, let me ask you a question. He mentioned Jumptown, right? And you guys know Jumptown was a real hotbed. And I don't know what aspect of Jumptown was he referring to as griefing. Let me give you an example. Some orgs would want to go in and do the purchases of Widow, right? And what they would do is they would surround or hover over or orbit over Jumptown so that their people could safely get in, make purchases, do transactions, and come out. If someone else tried to come in, that airborne group may attack them. Was that griefing, or was he saying griefing was, somebody's trying to make money, they're down there loading their ship up, and while their ship is on the ground, you blow it up? I'm trying to figure out where he saw the griefing aspect with Jumptown. Any ideas? Because I didn't do Jumptown a lot, but I went a few times.
How many times did it happen?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. For me, Jumptown became too volatile at one point. At first it was, 50-50, right? You go in, sometimes you go there, somebody be there in front of you, they leave you alone. It's kind of like, hey, as long as you don't bother me, I don't bother you. And then there were other times where it just got, literally, you couldn't even get into Jumptown because people would just nail you before you got there. And I don't know when it became griefing. You know what I mean? Or were they just basically saying, no, we're dominating this area until we're through doing what we want to do?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Drugs and bad. Okay.
Right. Right.
So Jumptown is where a lot of illegal stuff is at. So
right.
I'm trying to figure out how griefing at Jumptown became illegal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I agree. I agree.
But I get the terminology. I really do. But interesting.
Like my definition of non-consensual PvP and consensual PvP, and when it comes to Jumptown, that's consensual. If you're in that place, you are consenting to PvP.
Okay. And fair enough, because that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out where he's seeing that as griefing. I'm not getting it. I mean, they're all there to do a criminal act, and there's no honor among thieves. They again.
Right.
I've gone there before where nobody bothers you. I mean, I've done it in other places too.
Right.
Even it doesn't have to be a criminal place. It could be, you could go someplace where there's certain ore that's being sold, and you go there, and some people don't bother you. I'll give you a quick story. On one occasion,
before
go ahead.
Clarify. But when I consider Jumptown to be like no sex in EVE Online, so that's what I'm saying. It's consensual PvP. So
no, I agree.
Clarify.
I agree 100%. Right. I had an occasion. I was in an Avenger. I landed at this one place just to do a box delivery, and there was a ship there before me. He was already on the ground. So I go inside. I see him. He sees me. I'm carrying a box. He's already inside. He's putting the box down. I put my box down, but I get out before him. On my way back to my ship, I see him running back to his ship. I had a second box on my ship. I was flying Cutlass Black. When I went back to my ship, he starts firing on me. Now, he's in his ship. I'm sorry, I was in the Cutlass Black. He was in an Avenger. He starts firing on me. So I jump out of the back of my ship, the cargo area, because I couldn't get to the box in time, and I hide behind the struts. And eventually I said, let me get away from the ship because it's probably going to blow up. So I get away from the ship, hide behind a big boulder. Next thing you know, boom, my ship blows up. Now, he's hovering at this point. So I'm like, okay, you destroyed my ship. You destroyed my delivery. You made your delivery. Oh, well. Guess what happened next? Now he's hovering over me, trying to nail me. So now I'm running around on the ground. I finally make it into the bunker, right? Into the same building we were in before. For 15 minutes, he hovered around the building trying to shoot through the walls and kill me inside. And so at some point, it was like, okay, dude, what else do you want? You know what I mean? You've destroyed my ship. You've ruined my delivery. And now what's the point of killing me? Right now, I'm freaking stranded on this moon, right? Now, ask me, was that griefing? Or was it?
To me, that's going too far. But, yeah, I mean, at that point, I probably would have just suicide and kind of come back to Port Orsol or whatever your home base was.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I quite often I role play as much as I can. So if that had happened to my ship and he had left, I would have put a beacon out and saw if I could get a ride. And if I couldn't get a ride, then I would have suicided. You know what I mean? But for me, it changed the dynamic of the game. And don't get me wrong, I guess my question is there a space, and guys in chat, feel free to chime in on this, is there a space for killing without reason? And maybe there is. Maybe there is a reason I'm just not figuring. Maybe I'm just too much on one side of the scale versus the other. But is there a reason to kill without reason? I was non-threatening. I was minding my own business, but this person continued to come after me. And was that griefing? Or was it just the fact that, hey, he didn't know what I was down there for? I don't know.
I mean, I really don't know. The question is, did you communicate with him while that stuff was going on, through that whole time, letting him know, listen, I'm trying to get this, or And because sometimes you just can communicate with them
Right.
on a DM or what have you in game and say, look, I'm not trying to do anything. I have no weapons. Because sometimes you get people that say, as long as you're not holstering a gun or
Right.
not using a weapon, So and we saw a guy out there a while ago in a Van Duel ship, the red one.
The red
The
one.
one with the blade, I believe.
Blade.
Yeah.
There was somebody out there doing that type of stuff in the blade, and you have to those ships you have to get on top of because it has a good shield and all that mess, and it's very very agile. So I I really don't know, but I mean it's just interesting to try to see the other side of it though, in terms of the guys who are doing that type of stuff in that area. It's kind of hard to sit there and try to say anybody's griefing in an area that's supposed to be unoccupied, that is considered illegal, illicit.
Right.
Um,
It's open season
where,
there, basically. You're
yeah,
saying.
Yeah.
where do you hold the bounty? I mean, do you come in with reinforcement? I mean, we've done that several times. When we saw
Right.
a person sit there and griefing everybody over there, we thought we defined it as griefing. So what did we do? We came in with the force and
Right.
cleared the whole area.
Right.
So you got to kind of watch out the balance there.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I know I just said that if you're in Youngtown, you automatically consent to griefing. But if he had just tried to stalk you for like 5 minutes and then he got bored and left,
Right.
that to me would sound fine.
Mhm.
The fact that you said he spent 15 minutes, that's
Right.
going overboard.
Yeah, because I was thinking you could be off making some more money. You're out here trying to shoot me. It's like, what's the point? But that's just me. Anyway. Okay. Jumptown is closed for your safety. Okay. Let's go to his next definition. Now, this is a definition that Captain Kid introduces that I had not heard anybody really talk much about, and that's marauders.
The next distinction for us is marauders, and marauders are outlaws. And this is just my opinion. I don't think this is how it needs to go. I'm not going to try to force anybody to do this. It's just my opinion about these distinctions. So a marauder is someone who's willing to KOS without warning. They don't offer surrender to their targets. And maybe it could be for purposes of retribution or infamy, or maybe they have a contract, I don't know. But that would be a different code of conduct for marauding. And I want to just say, going on the record, that I'm not against marauders. I think it's a valid gameplay. It's just not pirate gameplay, because pirates are about profit, not about bloodshed. And they've always been about that. And I think that's really the opportunity that we have in Star Citizen is to really make that distinction.
Okay. So he sees marauders about bloodshed. In other words, it could be a contract, could be some form of retribution, and it distinguishes itself from piracy. Does marauding get close to... Is there a fine line before you start griefing with marauding? Because this goes back to my question about killing with a purpose. And I mean, of course, people can always make an excuse for why they kill people, right? So that could be still kind of relative. But what do you think about that as far as he said about marauders?
I mean,
You want to go first? Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, fastcart.
No, would you go ahead? Go ahead.
All right, so he's right in every sense of the word. But I don't think they do it just for bloodshed. I mean, from what I know is they like to, they do roam from place to place. They do attack people. They do raids, but they do it in search of plunder. Okay, and
Okay.
so it could be bloodshed. It could be, in other words, these people have no rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? They have no rules. They're going to attack you for profit or non-profit. It doesn't matter.
So they could be basically like, let's say, for example, come to your base because they want to raid you for all your minerals that you've got or food supply. You know what I mean? And they just kill everybody but take your stuff. That's what you're saying. They just plunder. That's basically what they do.
I mean, you could call. I mean, by the UEE's definition, the Vandals are just that.
Yeah.
Because
Luciano just said that.
So with that being the case, it's kind of hard to get mad at players who are taking up that role, because that should be the immersion of the game. Okay, you're not only fighting against the Vandals if you support the UEE, but let's say you support the people over there at Levski, the People's Republic.
Yeah.
over there. They don't like the UE at all, and they could have Marauders just harassing the UEE and things like that, and you could be one of them. You don't have to be a sympathizer to the UEE.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're dealing with, you're talking about role play,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is good for that. I mean,
Right.
can it be harassment? If it meets the definition and criteria of it, if that person's constantly hitting the same person over and over again, yeah, it's griefing and harassment.
Mhm.
But no, I wouldn't see anybody who's out there in deep space just nailing every last ship they saw just for the fun of it as griefing. Wouldn't see that.
Again, the thing I do like that Captain Kidd does, and again, I know he says he's not trying to set the standard for everybody in the game, but I do like the fact that there's this aspect of structure of what these types of gameplay are. And as you mentioned, marauding can extend into a lot of other areas. It doesn't have to be just bloodshed. I think it might be a situation where bloodshed ends up probably happening more than piracy. You can have piracy happen and nobody die. But if you're going to go in and, like you said, plunder and take people's stuff, more than likely, and especially if there's no negotiation, I'm not giving you any option. We're just going to show up. And if you can defend yourself, fine. But if not, we're taking everything we can, and we're, no rules. Then I still see that as a mechanic of gameplay that has purpose. I'm doing it for a reason, and not just, hey, there's a base over there with some people walking around. Let's just go kill them. That to me is the thing I worry about. That goes outside of that definition of a marauder. Fastcart?
And I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what you just said. It's like it helps me to wrap my brain about it because, like I said, I'm a card killing Care Bear. It's not something that I would do. I don't see. Let me rephrase this. It's not something I would enjoy. But I mean, if other people enjoy it, as long as they're not, griefing, then yeah, it's okay. As long as you maybe one, possibly twice, you target the same person, okay. But you continue to target one person, or you just camping out in front of a newbie zone and marauding, then yeah, to have a problem because people can't really defend themselves if they're but.
Yeah, I hear you.
Again, how can you defend against that? You can bring more people in than they have. Possibly hire NPCs to escort you.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Well, Martog, great point. Martog says, I think a simple definition of griefing is any game is killing with main intent of making others have a worse game experience. But if it's profit, territory, revenge, etc., those are legitimate in-game reasons to kill. And
only problem I have with that is what is intent. How can you determine somebody's intent? Now we're going to legal definition, right?
Well,
so,
I know, but I would go ahead.
If you put that type of a loose terminology on that, then I mean, it's going to be hard to prove that person intended to grief you. So. It's
well, yeah, but even Captain Kidd said that. He said the idea is it becomes a personal. There's no real motive. There's no game driven motive for what you're doing. This isn't enhanced gaming. Because here's my issue. You remember the phrase that people say, "Why don't you go pick on somebody your own size?" Right? When you get somebody who's got some big freaking Hornet or something shooting at somebody who's in a Aurora MR who's leaving out of Port O.
There are some tough Auroras and more.
Wait. No. I was going to qualify it. The qualification was that more than likely they're a new player. Then I'm saying to myself, isn't there somebody else bigger you can challenge? Somebody, if you're looking for a challenge or if you're looking to prove yourself as a fighter, there are plenty of other places you can go to do that. But the fact that you'd come specifically to Port O, hover outside of the Armistice area, just to nail an Aurora MR that more than likely is somebody who's just getting into the game, I just wonder about that. And that's just me. And that's why I want to go into this whole thing of criminal minds. I don't want to get too deep into people's psychology and what they're thinking. Because like you said, Kelosal, we can't know what people's real intent is. But we have to also wonder, does this impact the game in the sense of people wanting to play Star Citizen? Or are we turning people off? Or just we say, well, they don't have their big boy. Because, with Eve, it's real easy to say, if you ain't got your big boy britches on, don't play the game. That's real easy. But it's also, but it's also an excuse to a certain degree because we know that people who come into Eve come in at different levels. Now, if you tell me don't go into low sec or no sec without your big, I agree. But if I'm in high sec, you know,
Right. Or I mean, I'm going to tell you simply. If you're talking about intent, you know, if I'm in an Aurora and you just pad ram me in a freaking carrot, I'm sorry, but your intent really isn't good.
Well, the question then becomes, would the character even survive? Because Auroras are tough.
I mean, we've seen them been popped. I've seen it several times out there in the PTU. But the point is, you can't sit there and say, "Well, my intent was I was supposed to fly over you, and I just got too close." I mean,
yeah. Shiver's got a good one here. Griefing is also, he has this too. Griefing is continuously killing someone over and over for no reason, with such an intent that they can no longer get any. It jumped up? Oh, any type of enjoyment out of gameplay. Now that I do like, because there is some intent there to keep the person from even playing the game, you know. And I know that there's also this dynamic of people saying, well, if they want to do something, they can call for help. They can get some people to come help them. And I know that's a factor. And you know, in our organization, we've done that. People will come in and say, hey, I need some help. I get that dynamic. But, you know, not to be funny, I hope I don't offend anybody, but I have to worry about the psychology of some of the people who do it. I really do. I'm just going to call it for what it is. Listen, when there's a whole universe and all you can find time to do is that, maybe you're bored. You know, maybe you're bored.
That's not even.
But that's just me. I know some people might get mad when I say that, but I'm just saying, there's plenty of things to do. There's plenty of ways to connect in a social game like Star Citizen, even with a little bit of content we do have. Go ahead, Fastcart.
I have an interesting point to make.
Sure.
In one of the latest comics, CIG announced that there's a free fly coming.
Right.
Probably in a few weeks. So we're gonna have a bunch of new players coming in. They're gonna be spawning into Port Olisar, and some of them, well, you know, because of their dislike against Star Citizen, are gonna try to make people's lives as miserable as possible.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that they won't be coming into Port O anymore, because you can't come in that way anymore now. Now you got to do Lorville or New Babbage or R-Corp. So they're going to come in a different way.
But they can get back to
oh yeah, absolutely. And your point's well made. So we will see what happens during that time. That might be a new factor to deal with. Okay, we're going to move. Go ahead.
Or it could just mean that there are more targets for people to make miserable.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, hopefully, I mean, the free fly is supposed to be something that we do to generate greater interest in the game, and hopefully some of those actions aren't things that actually turn people off, especially people who are, because this whole space sim thing is still new for a lot of people. Let's jump into our last segment here, and this kind of culminates with all the subjects we've been talking about, because any of the people who do any of this stuff, piracy, marauding, griefing, whatever you want to call it, prattering, they may find themselves going to this place, Monopoly, going to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You may find yourself in prison. And right now, in 3.9, Klescher, thank you, Klescher rehabilitation, the prison has been implemented. And I put out an invitation to my host, my co-host, Fastcart. Yes, I said, Fastcart, listen, before we do this show, man, we got to go to prison. Kelosal said, I'm not a statistic. You go by yourself, brother. So he would not go.
Exactly the same way.
He would not go to prison with me. He's not a brother. He would not go down to prison with me for 3 hots and a cot.
I'm the ambassador of Star Citizen. I don't need to increase my brand anymore than I already have.
Okay, fair enough. I fear you don't want to besmirch your reputation. That's I get to do it by myself. Okay, so just so you guys will know, Kelosal and I have gone to prison. Kelosal will get to tell his story. I'm going to run my story first. I ended up going into prison by doing something very simple. In fact, I called Kelosal. I said, Kelosal, how do I get into prison real easy? He said, just fly to the prison and shoot at it. So I got in a ship. I flew to Aberdeen, found the prison, flew toward it, got to about less than 1,000 meters, and I didn't even see it, but they shot me with something. All I knew is I blew up, and I woke up in prison. And you wake up fully dressed in your prison clothing, and you have a multi-tool. In this video you're seeing right now, I shot video of me going in and getting blasted and going into prison. But what I ended up doing was taking a little walk around the area to see what it looked like. saw that there was an area where you come in. There's computer terminals where you can put your handprint down, and it'll tell you who you are. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you even do that, when you leave your room, they welcome you to the prison, and they tell you that you can work to get out. So you go to the computer terminal, put your hand on it, gives you your ID, tells you why you're in there, how long you're going to be in there. Just for coming to the prison and getting within proximity, because there were several warnings before I got there. After the third warning, that's when they fired on me, and I was automatically given 12 minutes to stay in prison. And this is 12 real-time minutes, folks. If you're wondering, it is 12 real minutes.
Put on a timeout.
I was put on a timeout. That's all that happened. I did have enough time to get food, get drink, get a med pen, and then go into the mines. When you are in the, I guess the inner core, is that what it would be called, Kelosal? That main area? It's armistice. You can't.
I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, you can't. There are guards there. There's tables there. Like if you want to sit down and eat lunch, it's like the common area, I guess. And you can't do any form of violence or any violence done against you. But once you go into the mining area, at that point you are vulnerable. And so I was very lucky that when I went on yesterday, even though it was in the middle of the day, I didn't run into one person the whole time I was there. I was really surprised. But I went deep into the mine. I went about 2 levels in, found some, I was about to say some dolomite. That would be really messed up to say I found dolomite. I found dolvine, and I mined it. And right when I got through mining the dolvine, my time was up in the prison. And so I literally just found my way back and walked out and did a little process to get out of the prison. But Kelosal has a deeper story than mine. And then I'll tell you about the story I saw that happened to Captain Richard. Kelosal, why don't you go ahead and share your story?
I just want to say 10, 12 minutes is a bunch of BS.
Kimmy, thanks for the raid. Kimmy just raided us. Kimmy, thank you for the raid. We appreciate it. Kimmy's another soul citizen. Thanks, buddy. Go ahead, Kelosal.
It's a bunch of BS. I mean, you got freaking, 12 minutes? Somebody else got 20 minutes. Okay, I've been there not once, not twice, but count them 4 times. And the least amount of time that I've had in that facility was 10 and a half hours. Okay, 10 and a half hours. And that was for a crime stat of 2. So Klescher Rehabilitation Facility has rehabilitated me because I haven't been back since. Okay, I will not go back to that facility.
I'm going to say something so bad, I apologize in advance, but, you know, that's because Griffin is probably lighter than you.
Oh.
Good God. Whatever he did, I want to know. Because this makes no sense. Okay, I just went there the first time. I didn't know where it was at, and then I just looked around the galaxy. I didn't pinch. I was like, "Hey, where's Klescher or Klescher, whatever you want to call it? I don't know if it's German or not." And somebody said, "Oh, it's over here in Aberdeen. Go ahead and go for it." So I went and go for it. And I think you have up until 10,000 kilometers, I believe, or 14 before you actually get into the restricted zone. So yeah, you still got a ways before you get in there. And once you get between 14 or 10,000. They're basically telling you to get out before you get a crime stat.
Yep.
And then you get one crime stat, and before you know it, I had a whole bunch of turrets shooting at me. Now I flew in the carrot, so I lasted a long time.
Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah, because I flew in a freaking what did I fly in? Oh, I flew in a Pisces. So there was no time flat. Yeah.
No time. So yeah, so that was that ended up with 2 crime stats and 10 and a half hours worth of work. And so I was trying to figure out what was going on. Okay, I knew I had my orange suit. It was great and wonderful. Went down to the mines. I didn't go that far because I am, when dealing with first-person shooters, I am not the man to go to. Simply because of the fact that it's so much going on and it gives me headaches, and I have to put
Stop
the
me
control
before
down.
I make an orange is the new black joke. Stop me before I do that.
I'm out for 8 hours. So I'm sitting there, and so imagine now you're down there as a first person, and you're looking at walls, and you're trying to turn here and stuff like that, and turn there. So it got very confusing in my head real quick, and I spent about 3.5 hours. I did not go as far as I should have because there are certain deposits in certain spots of Klescher, and the further you go, the more valuable or the rarer the resources get. And I didn't go down there because you get to the boxing ring and things get a little bit dreary down there.
Yeah,
And,
I was down there.
Right. And then, your oxygen starts to deplete and you have
Yep.
to find these oxygen machines to go ahead and at least get the oxygen back. Oh, and by the way, once you deplete that oxygen machine, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I mentioned it. I talked about the fact that I took a med pen and some food. If on the stream, you'll see me walking up to the commissary, and that's where I'm getting the stuff. It's free. You when you get it, but if you run out of oxygen, you're out of luck. So you're in a suit when you're out there. So you need to have these items with you because and like Kelosal said, depending on how long you're out there, I think I was out there for the amount of time it took me to go past section A, past the boxing ring into section B and come back. I had depleted, you may be able to see it on the video when we get done, but I want to say I had depleted about 70 to 60% of my oxygen, and that was not in a lot of time. So go ahead, Kelosal, you can finish on talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, just long story short, I went ahead and did mine the rare resources, and I learned from that because everybody else after that basically said when you mine the rare deposits, it cuts off between 15 to 20 minutes of your time. Well, thank you for giving me that information weeks late because I spent 3.5 hours down there mining, so it took from 10.5 hours to 7, and that's when I got my free release. That was after the first time, and then the other 3 times after that, I got put in jail for 11.5 hours, and instead of doing my due diligence, I did my due diligence, which was cut the game off and go to sleep for 11.5 hours, and then came back on. So, I mean, it basically rehabilitated me. I might just go back to Klescher one time, just one time to check and see if anything new has popped up or if my sentence will be commuted a little bit less. So we'll see how that happens because 10 minutes sound good versus 11 hours.
Now you told me one time when you went, you got attacked. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, I got attacked. Somebody hit me in the head with a freaking with one of those mining tools. And if you do some egregious act, you do get there's like certain things on it. There's you got whatever sentence you have, and then there's something like I'm paraphrasing here, something like bad behavior while in prison.
Yeah.
And that gets extended onto whatever your sentence time already is. So if you do something stupid like maybe shank somebody up in there and things like that, that can extend your service there.
Wow. Well, I can tell you this. There were a couple things that I saw while I was there. One of them was you mentioned this. The deeper you go in the mines, it gets scary. You can get lost in the mines as well. I didn't even want to consider the idea of trying to escape because it was too unfamiliar. I think maybe after you've gone there a few times, yeah, it just within that. But even so, I'm just saying the just the navigation for me to get to the place where there was the Dolvine took me 12 minutes to get to it. And so the idea of trying to remember, when I came back, when I was trying to come back to the exit, I made 2 wrong turns on the way back. The boxing ring's on screen now. I made 2 wrong turns on the way back. And so I said, man, I can't imagine if I went deeper down in this thing, I'd have to, you don't have glow sticks to drop on the ground to give you some breadcrumbs. You have to try to memorize all these turns. And mind you, if your oxygen is depleting, this is going to be a real issue. So I can't imagine when you're trying to escape out of here, if you haven't in some way or other formed a map of the layout of this place in your head, you may have some real problems. You definitely won't make it out. One of the two stories I want to share real quick. I watched Captain Richard when this first went out to concierge and to subscribers, and he was playing. And I don't know if they've changed something since then, but he was trying to get out. He finally did enough mining to get out. And when he went to the machine that you have to put your resources in to pay off your debt, some guy came up behind him and started punching him in the head. And so you started seeing him the dizzy blur look, and he had to call a couple of his friends to come over. And then there were 3 guys beating this guy up so that Captain Richard could put his stuff in the machine and get out of the prison. Because evidently somebody might have been stream sniping and saw it was Captain Richard and decided to go after him, right? So that was one instance of something that I saw somebody do. The second thing I saw was another good friend of mine, Thale Crow. He was streaming yesterday, and I saw him breaking into the prison from outside. And that was no small task. Watching him find the ladders and the staircases that lead down into the entrance. He died on his way down there. He missed one of the ladders and dropped like probably 100 meters and died. But there, I guess, evidently, there's a way to even break into the prison if you know how to navigate through that.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of people. Go ahead, Fred.
Real quick, I meant to apologize. I don't know what's going on with my PC. It did it twice. It looked like my video drive is crashed. And I had
That's
to
okay.
Click and restart. So
We saw you come back. No problem.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we saw a couple of friends. Gaz had its response. We saw several people in our org who basically broke in, and they somehow made it. And the good thing about breaking into the facility was they were able to get the hacking codes
Mm-hmm.
to the buildings that were outside, and I thought that was phenomenal. That's a nice area of the gameplay that they added in the game, where if you do break out, or you do break out, and you have somebody to bail you out with a aircraft or what have you, or you can go ahead and look around, and there's some terminals that you can go to, and it has these codes. And what I've
Right.
heard about the codes is I heard the codes do change.
Yes, they change the codes. They do.
So which is good, because you don't have the same code all the time. You can just write down and say, oh, here's the code, and give it to somebody else and hope and pray they go ahead and unlock those doors to get that rover. So, and then you try to go ahead and head on out. Now, I don't know what type of gameplay they're going to put after you get the rover. I don't know if there's going to be some people coming after you in their own rover, some NPCs. It'd be nice if they did that you have to find some way to dodge them, or either try to destroy them as you're escaping. They need to add that part. They can't just say you got out and that's it, right?
Right, because currently that's what happens
So
when you.
it's gonna be Mad Max and Star Citizen.
Right,
Well,
absolutely.
Right. Well, currently what happens is this: you walk out, and when you go out the door, the screen goes black, and then you wake up at Everest Harbor. So there is no
get out legally.
Yeah, right. Legally, I'm saying legally, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying even that aspect. Somebody had suggested the other day it would be really cool if you came out and there was a transport shuttle or something else. I mean, just to keep the immersion going, so that there's just not this jump straight up to a space station that's up in the air. And to your point, Kelosal, those combination codes lead to garages where those rovers are, where you can get out. Which it's going to be interesting to see how all that gameplay plays out. There is a video that Morphologist put out yesterday or day before yesterday. No, it was earlier this week. He interviewed one of the devs from CIG, and this was so cool. The dev referenced the possibility of some form of creatures that might end up being in these caves later. Xenomorph or something. So think about that aspect, right? When you're trying to get away and get out, you're already worried about, automated guns or, the path that you have to take to get out. But imagine also the possibility, it is a possibility, that there's something in the caves. That would be amazing.
Like Pitch Black.
Oh, that would be too scary. That would be too scary, right? That would be too scary for those of you who haven't seen it.
I'm not down for that.
Yeah. Shiver says, I saw this guy who left prison after a while. His brother picked him up outside, but the guy was driving a former police car. Are you talking about the Avenger, or are you talking about something for real? I know a Shiver, who knows, right?
but Kemi brought up a point.
He's talking about the Blues Brothers. I know what his reference.
It's more like a punishment than gameplay, but I think that's kind of a point.
What's more like punishment?
The prison gameplay.
Great a punishment. Let Joker serve that time. Let's want to do the time, then don't do the crime.
Well,
last time.
Let's reference the term punishment, right? Because punishment is a repercussion of something that you've done that's in violation of a law or some rule that's been put in place, right? And I think that we all know that prison is this is the first iteration of prison, but there's a lot of benefits that could come out of people who go to prison, right? We could start seeing mission givers who are in the prisons. You can see certain things that, certain information you can only get if you go to prison. Maybe there's some high level person, some high level criminal who's there. You get to interact with that person, and maybe you go out and mine a certain amount of resources and trade with him and that or her, and they give you information so that when you get out, you can do something. There may be some real benefits for people who do end up going to prison, other than just being quote unquote put into a time out.
Right. Maybe there's a rogue guard that you have to find at a specific time.
There
Like
you go.
they're just not there all the time. It could be in a day cycle or a night cycle, and that person pops up. Maybe that person pops up every 2 days,
Yeah.
every 3 days, and that person is giving you access to weapons, and you do a mute, or you do a little pirate. I mean, a jailbreak,
Right.
or a little jail. Some type of facade over at the jail cells with multiple people.
If that person or NPC is on a timer, you know there's gonna be a site or a page someone's gonna make to like set okay, this person is here at this time. Go in there.
Or it can be randomized. As long as we have a name for the person, even if it's randomized, we can they can figure out ways to make it work. Or that person doesn't pop up at the same spot every time. Maybe at one point they're deeper in the mine, maybe at one point they're at the entrance. But to your point, you're absolutely right. That's going to be the challenge, fastcart, that you just mentioned, for CIG to make the whole prison model, that whole thing, something that always remains challenging. Because right now, I heard people who were making the run. I think Paul last week told us there are people making the run out of the prison in like 12 minutes, 15 minutes. They've narrowed it down. Yeah, some crazy shortened amount of time. But this is the first iteration. But they've figured out the route, the jumping that you need to do to get out. And so of course, CIG is going to complicate it. They're going to make it a little bit more difficult. To me, I didn't even think about it. Like I told you, my first time there, I wasn't even thinking about trying to. I was just like, let me just cut these rocks and get out of here because I ain't trying to walk out of here. That's not going to happen. And by the way, I heard this too. If you're captured, do they double your time, Kelosal? Something like that. If you're caught when you try to get out.
Oh, I've never, like I said, I've been rehabilitated. Praise the Lord. I haven't been back nor tried to escape.
Okay,
I'm not the only one, Griffin.
I know. Well, maybe somebody in chat knows, but I thought I heard that if you try to escape, your time is actually doubled if you get caught. I thought I heard something like that. By the way, if you do escape, keep in mind, if you do escape, you do not have any of your items because all your items have been confiscated. You still have a crime stat as well. And you're still banned in certain areas for where you want to go. So you're going to need somebody to help you who can get you a key card. You're going to have to try and get that crime stat reduced. And even then, your stuff, all your clothing and items are still back at the prison. So that's going to be another factor. Do you want to leave your stuff there and rebuy all your stuff all over again? Wow. There's a lot of stuff to think about when it comes to deciding, in what way you're going to leave Klescher. And we can assume that Klescher is just one prison, that as the systems grow, so the idea of prisons may become maximum security even. You may have light level prisons. Who knows what they're going to do? I'm looking forward to it because I think it creates a different balance of gameplay. But as long as it stays, and I think it should stay to the point where people who decide to live the life, the criminal mind folks, that they still want to come back to the game. I don't want it to get to a point where they feel like, forget this, I don't want to do it. If they do feel that way, but it's balanced, then fine, let them leave. But I like the ones who look at it as a challenge and see some benefit if that happens, that there may be some good reasons for ending up in prison.
I just want to say, if I ever decide to go criminal or like Breaking Bad, I'm gonna go so far. I'm gonna get the death mark and 12 systems.
You want the serious reputation. Okay, we get the Star Wars reference.
there is going to be a major penal colony in the lore and on the map, in the star map. So I cannot remember what it was. I wish I would have brought it here, but there's a major penal colony there. I know Kimmy made two other points that I saw one earlier talking about how you might have a rival org in the prison system with you. Wouldn't that be neat when you sit there, you get your rival org up in the boxing ring? And the other one, he's saying you have to wipe your criminal record. I mean, you would have to hack in and do something like that, Kimmy, because from what the dev said, that there's supposed to be a criminal record tracker that they would like to track, like to stay on your record. So whoever sees you in game, they're supposed to be able to pull up your criminal record or whatever record you have and see it. So I hope they put that in, because if I'm riding around, I mean, I had a member a while ago jump in. It's like, Colossal, come fly me over here. And so I put the member in my ship, and they were like, oh, by the way, I have a level 2 crime stat. And that was right when we got stopped by the police, and the police said that I was harboring a fugitive, and then I got the crime stat. So I would have known that, and at the time it was a bug in the game, and I couldn't see if they had a rating. So, but if they put that in game to where you're able to basically look at that person's journal and see that they got a criminal a history longer than your arm, then it'll be fantastic to have in game.
I just gotta say, I love Twitch chat. You guys are tickling my nostalgia real hard.
Oh God, I know the arguing between the Bluesmobile and the General Lee is too funny. I swear. I'm like, when did we like go back to like old nostalgia 80s TV? But it's like they're having fun, so that's more than fine. That is more than fine.
I love it.
So let me ask you a question. Real quick survey from you guys. Kelosal, I'll start with you. There was a lot of concern about a law system when this was first announced. Justice. There were people who were real nervous about it, weren't sure what it was going to be. Then when they talked about a prison, people's hair went up even more. They were a little nervous about it. In light of what you see so far, how do you feel CIG has brought this, how they've introduced this extra component now to, the crime stats and all that stuff? How do you think the prison system has kind of come out so far?
I mean, it's probably the same type of people that were scared over food and drinks being put in game. It's great. It's a good immersion. You got people who are always concerned, and this is just going to the sympathetic side, and not trying to be empathetic, but I understand because there's a lot of games that we've played where you can say Age of Conan for one, where they nerfed the necromancers. You can say Star Wars Galaxy, where they completely came in and the NGO completely wiped and screwed up the entire great game. There are a lot of people who played these types of games to where it just took one or two, whatever, I won't even say brave, I would say idiotic ideas that came in and completely messed up the entire game, and all of a sudden there's no attendance and the game is gone. I think as of right now, May 3rd, 2020, by the way, as of right now, Star Citizen is on the right track. CIG is on the right track, implementing a jail system. We have jails in real life in every country you go to, at least every civilized country you go to. And that type of stuff is needed to correct or control a society or an environment. So, I mean, they're heading down the right path in terms of with the prison. I'm interested in seeing the penal colony and how these are the first steps on how they're going to go ahead, and they can change things. It's like a living document. So they're on the right step. I think they've implemented things correctly, and I look forward to seeing some more implementations in the future.
Fastcart?
First off, just want to say to Kimmy, don't get me started on Daisy Duke. You're wrong, man. Don't do that. Second of all, back to the topic. Just part of the reason I don't want to participate in this prison thing is that, Griffin went in, he got 12 minutes. Klescher got in, he got 10 hours. I'm going to get 24 hours. Just look at me. Compare me to Griffin. But anyway, it's like, I hope they expand on it. I hope this isn't like sometimes they do stuff like Arena Commander or Storm Marine. They go in and put something in and not iterate on it anymore. I don't see them stopping iteration on this. Let me put it this way. I see them continuing to iterate on this. At least that's my hope. And make some improvement. Whatever feedback they get, they'll listen to it and try to expand on it, make it better. Make it so that the time fit the crime and stuff like that. So I am hopeful, but we'll have to see. I mean, there's always going to be people who disagree with stuff how it's implemented. Mm-hmm. But hopefully over time it'll become normalized and people will get used to it and it'll be okay.
Yeah. I think I want to comment back to something Kelosal said a couple of minutes ago when he says, I think the same people who worried about this may have been the people who worried about food and drink. And to your point, Kelosal, there are some genuine and even valid concerns for when people talk about implementing something into a game that they like already and when you start bringing up this word, change, right? Something different. And I think that there's already a couple things that CIG has going against them. One, the fact that they're creating something that's different, which in and of itself, people are fearful of things that are different. And secondly, also the fact that, as you mentioned, the gaming industry has tried to implement certain mechanics that have quite often made a game that was very good, less desirable for people wanting to come back to and play. And I'm not trying to defend Star Citizen in this area, but I'm going to defend them to a certain degree. So far, when the community has come together in a decent voice, I'm talking about in the sense of a logical, rational, and large voice, CIG has listened. And I really think about when hover mode came out in particular. There was a lot of concern. Hover mode came out, people didn't expect it, but people raised the issue and said, "Hey, we're having problems," and they responded to the community. When food and drink came out, we made jokes on it a few weeks ago about the show that people were over worrying about food and drink. People were talking about, "I don't want this to become 7 Days to Die," or this, that. It's not, or Ark. And we get it, because games like that, literally, when you get an Ark, all you do is eat for the freaking first hour. So I get it. But there was never anything to make us think. Go ahead, Fastcart. There's nothing to make us think that we can
important. As far as the feedback and stuff, I haven't seen anything about bobblehead. They haven't addressed that at all.
That's true, right? Nobody's argued about that. So my point, in the most case, CIG, even when they flub, even when they make that mistake, if the community's on point, they respond to it. So food and drink, most people now have seen that food and drink has not ruined your day. You're not walking around having to drink every 5 minutes that people were worried about. And the same thing with the prison system. It took a little bit before I got into the prison. I think I had a crime stat 1 Kelosal when I was flying in. No problem. I think it's like you said, crime stat 2 and above that you got to start worrying about it. So we'll see how this iteration goes, how well they continue to develop it. But once again, remember, this is only the first iteration in the game. So I'm going to stop there. Go ahead, Fastcar. I'll let you go, then Kelosal, and I'll close out.
John's going to make a bad joke. I think for me, it'll just be a crime stat of 3/5, and I'll be in there.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say about griefing or piracy or marauding or the prison?
I think we covered it. I thought marauding, that was a new term for me, like a new way of thinking for me. So I have to wrap my mind around it some more. But as far as I don't like griefing. If I haven't been clear on that before, so it's like, and my definition of griefing probably differs from other people. Being a Care Bear and being a proud Care Bear, being a card-carrying Care Bear. Have I mentioned I'm a Care Bear?
Yes, you have. Yes, only once.
So it's like I'm hoping, like I said before, that CIG will continue iteration on it, make it better, make improvement, and by the time they add that bigger penal system that we're unsure about the location of, they'll have their they have a better idea of what mistakes they made this time and not make them going forward, or make improvements, or not just mistakes. So
right.
We'll see.
Okay. St. Tosin, thank you for correcting. St. Tosin said that yes, you can go to prison even with a level 1 crime stat. So I stand corrected. He said evidently he knows. So be careful if you get that level 1, get it cleared out. J2, you said you're going to maraud all of our asses. Well, that's going to be the same thing that happens to you if you go to prison. Pardon the expression. Okay. Kelosal, go ahead and give us your thoughts, Kelosal. Anything you want to throw in at the end?
Like I said, AHWAGNBTD, assholes who ain't got nothing better to do. With all due respect to your the shows that you've shown.
Lowercase, so the bot don't ban you.
No disrespect, Captain Kid. I hope we have a good relationship in the verse. But I love what they got going on. I love the emergency. I love the emergence. I love the fact that Captain Kid was able to show stuff with Captain Kid and BoredGamer, so you can see the other side of what is going on. And just like I hope they do piracy with honor, but you just got some of those people that will hit the terminology and definition of griefing and things like that and so forth. And I look forward to seeing CIG's efforts into trying to manage that. But as far as your rehab facilities, I'll tell you right now, and I'll say it again, I have been rehabilitated, and I will not try to make any efforts into going to Klescher because that was too much of an event for me. But great. I mean, I love what Star Citizen is doing, and I look forward to seeing some other things. Now, if they can go ahead and put some of stuff towards gameplay and the economy, bringing that merchantman, I'll be happy.
All right. Well, we got the summer. We've got the summer to look forward to. I saw what you guys were making the comment about in relation to hover mode, and yes, hover mode is coming back, but in a different iteration, and hopefully it will be tweaked and be much more manageable. I agree. There were some of us that actually got used to hover mode. We're like, okay, we figured it out, but it was definitely not intuitive. So hopefully they'll develop something that is still challenging, but at the same time makes it welcoming for players to learn how to do. So anyway, in relation to all this, for those of you who have criminal minds, all you criminals out there, you bad thinking people, we still love you. We appreciate you being in the universe, and I appreciate everybody who, we appreciate everybody who tuned in with us tonight too. Double hearts. Yeah, there you go. Let's see who we can raid tonight. Who can we raid? Let's hit, we hit Burks last time. Captain Richard, he don't need nobody. Let's see. No, you know what? We haven't done, let's do Red Lear. We'll do Red Lear tonight. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Again, we appreciate all of you, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Next week, our show, what's our next week's show on? Is it Starships next week? Exploration?
The week after that.
Oh, it's the week after that. Next week we're going to do CitizenCon 2013. No. Gamescom 2014, something like that. Right. Yeah. So we're going to go back and see how all this stuff got started again, and it's going to be real interesting. So tune in next Sunday, 7:00. We'll have a different crew here, and we appreciate you guys. Stay healthy, take care of yourself, and always we want to say love, peace, and soul. See you guys real soon. Take care.
Some people just want to see the world burn.
Yes, they do. And that was Alfred, by the way, who said that. I know you were trying to think of who it was, but Alfred said it's a Bruce Wayne. You. All right. See you guys later.
Because that's like a detox TV.
And Discord?
We could always steal.
Let's jump over there real quick.
Use them as our own until he finds out and sues us.